Hello, Reds. It is Live at 5 with me, Gareth, Robbo, Tim, Paul, Cope. We are from the Late Challenge podcast. Please do check out our stuff. But on here, on This Is Anfield, we are, of course, talking about the Reds. We are talking about, first and foremost, Brighton 2, Liverpool 2. We're also going to talk about our thoughts on the season so far. We've got a comment in already from Joseph Tyrrell, who says, I think most Reds would have taken this point toll from the first 8 games with the tough away games we've had so far. Big up Cope and Robbo, as I always love the content. So thanks for that, Joe. And I think as well a fair thing that he said about the season so far as well, but we'll get into that as we go. As I said, first of all, we are going to talk about the 2-2 draw at Brighton, which of course follows that unfair, unjust and downright scandalous 2-1 defeat at Spurs. And I think that makes this feel more disappointing. I think the balance of the game, I think Klopp was fair on it. I think a draw was probably about right. We could have won it. They could have won it. Yeah. And like I say, it just sort of, it feels worse because we got beat by Spurs last week, and in that fashion, we was robbed.
Yeah, and I think going into those 2 games, everyone was sort of doing the, big test this, isn't it? And like big swing point in the season, maybe. If you go and the optimistic fans amongst us were like, you could win both those games because we were in good form and things were seemingly clicking. So you go in and you win both those games and you're flying then going into the international break. And as you say, because of what happened at Spurs and the fact that before all of the nonsense that went on, we were doing really well and we could easily have won that game. And we said in the show last week, didn't we? And probably didn't spend enough time talking about that. Even with 10 men, I was confident we were going to win. Yeah. Like, we were really good. And
even with 9, we had a pop.
It was fun. I thought it's hilarious, isn't it? But that's what the Newcastle game did for us.
Yeah.
Like, against Newcastle, I couldn't see how we would do it. And then all of a sudden against Spurs, I was like, we'll still win. And I think Núñez has had a big impact on that, by the way, just because he just gives you that extra dynamism when you've got 10 men. That's literally what happened against Newcastle. But that's a slight aside. So, yeah, I do feel like, just objectively, a 2-2 draw away at Brighton in the current context with what Brighton are is not a bad result, is it? But to only have 1 point out of those 2 games is, I'm doing all the glass half full, half empty at the same time here. On the one hand, to only have 1 point out of those 2 games is disappointing. But then when you look at the table and see we're only 3 points behind Spurs at the top of the league and 1 point behind City, you're like, well, fucking bite your hand off for that. That's sound. Especially when, and I know everyone's talking about this, but, well, everyone, I don't know who everyone is, but I've seen a few people talk about it. We have got some big fixtures out the way there.
Yeah, 5 aways as well.
To have been away to Chelsea, Brighton, Spurs and Newcastle already and have the points we have. And when you think, I know people are sort of discounting Chelsea because they weren't in everyone's saying, the top 6 from last year, whatever. But Chelsea, now they're starting to get their act together. Late as the season progresses, Chelsea away becomes a harder game. So that becomes one of your tough games again. And we've already got that out the way. It's the point haul and where we're sitting, having got those gone, I think is positive.
Yeah, and we've got 3 home games on the spin after the international break. That's all quite positive, mate. I think what I would say is there are some negatives from the game yesterday as well. I thought it was another slow start. Obviously conceded the opener again. And I think that's 7 first half goals that we've conceded this season in the Prem. The first is obviously a terrible mix-up. It's a poor pass by Van Dijk. Mac Allister's got 3 players around him when he decided to play it to him. So it's a strange choice in the first place. Mac Allister maybe not aware enough of that threat. Alisson out of his goal. You can blame any combination of that 3 however you want, really, but it didn't look great. It felt unnecessary. It felt a daft goal to concede, didn't it?
100% unnecessary. But I've got a lot of sympathy for Mac Allister. You know, like I watched some of the game yesterday, but I had loads going on, so I thought I'm going to watch it properly today, and especially the second half. So I've watched it back, and I know everyone's on. We're going to talk about this as well. Mac Allister is the 6, and people are focusing on Mac Allister as the 6. If I'm Mac Allister, and Klopp even post-match sort of referenced that mistake, I'm like, fucking hell, it's harsh to blame that on Mac Allister. Mac Allister stood there with lads around him, and Van Dijk just decides to play a shit pass into him. And you're like, come on, mate, give him a chance. I had laughing at a completely different level of football. Like, we're talking opposite ends of the spectrum. But when I used to play five-a-side, and one of my cousins used to play with me, and we all used to laugh at the same thing. He used to just look, and then he'd just kick the ball up the pitch to no one. And then he'd turn to you and go, I thought you were making a run.
That old classic.
And we'd all look at him and go, I wasn't.
Yeah.
I never made any I didn't intimate that I was making a run at all. You've just kicked the ball away. Stop fucking blaming me. I got that vibe where I was like, if I was Mac Allister, I'd be going to Van Dijk, lad, I wasn't on for the pass. Don't try and give it to me.
Yeah.
And then don't try and give it to me and then blame me for not getting it. Fucking hell.
I mean, you're right to say that is a big conversation topic amongst Reds at the minute about whether he should be in that sort of six role, certainly sort of alone in that six role, if you like. And he doesn't look comfortable there. He doesn't look like he's enjoying it.
No.
I don't think he's particularly physical, is he? And it wasn't what he was bought for. And, you've seen him going the other way, that fantastic ball to Núñez and things like that. It's not what he wanted, is it? And, I thought it was a little bit strange that Endo was hooked in the week in the Europa League. And when he went off, you thought, well, that's in prep for Brighton. And then he's not there. Mac Allister's there. And then we're talking again about his suitability to the role. I thought as well, I sort of understand it in one way, but I don't in another. I suppose it could go either way. But Elliott as well, I've really liked him coming on as a substitute. And I think, he brings great energy to those situations and, sort of riles everyone up, gets everyone going. I'm not so sure about him starting, certainly ahead of Gravenberch, because I thought he'd done well in the week and I expected him to start this. And I thought he was good when the two got swapped. And he's unlucky. He could have, he obviously hits the bar. I don't think he deserves much criticism for that, to be honest. I think it was a difficult chance the way it come to him, and he's done his best to sort of adjust himself to get on the end of it. And I think to say, like it's an absolute sitter and he should have buried it, I think that's a bit harsh.
I think it's harsh to say it's a sitter, and I can see why people say, well, it's an open goal, isn't it? Like, but he's not.
It's how it comes.
At the end of the day, Michael Owen buries that. But I've heard Michael Owen talk about chances like that, and he's like, people like try and get finishing too fancy sometimes. Sometimes it's just a case of scuffing it into the back of the net, and sometimes I know Michael Owen gets criticised for a lot of his punditry, but I really like listening to him talk about goal scoring and being a striker, because he's really interesting to listen to with the technical stuff, and to hear him say things like, sometimes the best thing you can do is scuff a shot, because like the idea is just get it in the goal.
Yeah.
And that was one of those, wasn't it? He'd have been better off scuffing that with the underside of his boot,
just bundling
it in, than he got a decent contact on it, and that was too much. But he's not a goal scorer. He's not a natural goal scorer, so it's one of them. It's hard. I think it's harsh to say it was an easy chance, and he probably should have scored. And to work backwards from what you were saying, yeah, I think this is one of those things where it's very easy as footy fans playing footy manager or champ manager to be like, yeah, well, I'd have just picked Gravenberch because Gravenberch is better, and it would mean we don't have to move Szoboszlai across as well. But at the same time, Klopp has been vocal this year about how well Elliott's been training and how good he is, and as you said, the impact he's had coming off the bench. So I do think there's a squad management and player management bit in this. I think if you'd have asked Klopp, if Klopp didn't have to deal with humans, as some managers don't, and get on our TLC show later in the week for us talking about managers, but if you didn't have to deal with them as humans and you didn't care about any of that stuff, you'd have probably played Gravenberch. But Klopp is very much about dealing with humans, and that's part of his strength. And we've said before, your greatest strength is often your greatest weakness. It makes sense to me that he picked Elliott.
Yeah, it's like on merit, isn't it?
Yeah, a collective merit. Basically, if I don't give you this chance now, if I don't start you in this game, you'll start getting disheartened. Whereas Gravenberch, I don't need to start him in this game. He's had a few starts. Like, think about the relative stages in their careers as well. Gravenberch has come from Bayern Munich, where he wasn't getting a sniff. He's already got a couple of assists and a goal in the games he's played for us. He started a few games in Europe. He's on a high. He's loving it. Elliott has been here for a while now. still hasn't like got himself bedded in the side. We've bought more midfielders. If you don't give him his chance, you could see how he'd start being like, well, what the fuck do I need to do? So I understand why he did it, and I'm with you. Like, I think we look. I'm still not. I know everybody thinks. I think most people think this. There's a question mark over Elliott. I still put him in the category of everyone doesn't have to be a world beater to be in your squad. Do you know what I mean? Like, what if he's comfortable and can't be, yeah.
Because world beaters want to play every game.
Exactly.
World beaters are on loads of money.
Yeah.
And yeah, you're always going to have levels within your squad, and I think he's absolutely fine as being part of the squad.
I do, but going back to the 6 thing as well, I have to say this, and we'll keep going back to it, but this is the bit where, and I'm sure people will criticise and they love having a pop and all that, but this is what we were saying when we were going into the season. We clearly wanted a number 6 and we didn't buy one. So to then pretend that we didn't need one or we didn't want one is disingenuous. Like, we didn't buy Endo. And we said at the time, Endo isn't the player they wanted, is he? He was just he's a good option to have in the squad. And none of us knew back then, like, maybe he was the secret signing and he'd play. Well, 8 games into the season, 8 league games into the season, we've got our answer already, haven't we? I think. I don't think this is going to be he beds in for 6 months and then he becomes our first choice number 6. I think most likely we buy Andre in January when we can, and that's what the game plan was. But in the meantime, we're making do, and that's what worries me with this now, with the whole endeavour, is it's another season where if you're looking at it, you're like, but if we'd have just bought that 6, or if we'd have just, like, we wanted Levi Colwill, which means you wanted a defender and you didn't buy him. So then you didn't buy a defender, but you wanted one. So, like, there was no one else you could have bought. And that conversation can go round and round and round, but
Kwanzaa's done well, by the way, I think.
Who?
Kwanzaa's done really well.
Yeah, 100% he has, really well. And look, touching all the wood, he's managing the defenders well.
Yeah.
Like, even taking Matip off at the weekend to be like, yeah, okay, let's rotate them before anyone pops. And Trent came off and Gomez got another run out, and everyone's looking sound. So if they can keep that going and they don't all have to play too much, maybe it'll all be fine.
The other goal was daft as well, though, wasn't it? Do you know what I mean? I don't know. Robertson can only tell you what he's doing there, and it looked like he didn't want to go with his weaker foot, or he was, or he was worried that he was putting it in his own net or whatever.
Well, I think
you can see how he reacts immediately. That he was like, "Oh shit!"
But I think I think all 3 of them. If you pause it right, there's 3 of them in a line. I can't remember who it is immediately behind Robertson, but then it's
Konate.
Konate's the next, and it's a bit like I used to be a defender again. Opposite end of the spectrum before anyone starts saying don't compare yourself to Premier League footballers, but there's that thing we've talked about in the past, which is to be a striker you need a striking instinct. You need the instinct of always trying to get on the end of the shot, always trying to anticipate. To be an amazing defender, you need to have that instinct the other way round. So I know some people will say to me, but this is harsh on Konate, and it is. But if Konate is unbelievable world class, he still stops that because he anticipates Robertson might miss it. Because I think, in fairness to Robertson, you can see why he pulls his leg back. He's thinking, if I dangle my leg at this, I'm not in control. It's like Matip last week. I don't want to put it in my own net. I'll just leave it and then trust. And bear in mind, this is all in split seconds. This is happening. But then the 2 lads behind him also don't anticipate it. So you've got 3 lads not anticipating properly and not getting themselves in good enough position. And I've mentioned this earlier in the season about Van Dijk, and I actually think Van Dijk has improved since I said it. But we do have an issue in the heart of our defence still. We are giving up too many, for me, clear-cut goal-scoring opportunities. Like, think about how many, and football is a fine margins game. Think about how many free headers people have had or chances right in front of goal. And Alisson's been one of our best players so far this season. He's pulled off some saves. And it's funny, if you like compare us to, say, Man United have had a shit goalie to start the season.
Very shit.
And we've had an unbelievable goalie, and it makes a massive difference to your life, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Because
we could have lost this game, couldn't we? Because there's the Pedro big miss.
Well, even before then, like, everyone's focusing on Gravenberch's hitting the bar, but Alisson pulls off an unbelievable save 3 minutes into the second half. That's a goal. Unless he makes that unbelievable save. and that would have drawn them level. So, and then obviously, there's the miss at the end as well. But these are all big chances still that we're giving up. Yeah. And that is still a bit of a concern for me.
A bit of irony, I suppose, in that, after what happens at Spurs, I think everyone was sort of thinking, well, how's this week going to treat us? And, I even had some of my mates who I watched the game with saying, I wonder if we'll be on the end of some positive decisions now because, they almost know that Liverpool were so badly wronged. Let's not let's not give them another situation where they can moan about it. Fair to say they failed in that.
Yeah.
So I'm yet to understand why Pascal Gross doesn't even get a card. But it doesn't get sent off for, essentially taking Szoboszlai's top off and putting it in his own wardrobe. I mean, it was so obvious what he'd done. And it really annoyed me last night when I was looking at Twitter, or X as that knob calls it. And there was a thing from the BBC, which is freeze framed, that penalty, saying, well, was this the right decision or whatever? And you're having a laugh. Of course it's the right decision. You see the shirt get stretched right out.
But they also did it on the Van Dijk handball, didn't they?
Which hit his
freeze
thigh
frame
first.
With the ball against his arm.
Yeah.
And you're but it came off his thigh, pricks.
It's not media. It's just not journalism, is it? Do you know what I mean? It's just clickbait shite, and it's really annoying.
But even the explanation that you've put in here, because I was chatting to my sister about this yesterday, and I went, what's mad about this though? I think we've reached a point now where nobody's, fans, players, managers, everything's got so complex that no one's even fully clear on what the rules of the game are anymore.
It's wrapped up in bollocks, isn't it?
When you think about us growing up, there was this ongoing misogynistic joke about women don't understand the offside rule. You're well, no one understands any fucking rule. So where do we go? And you go is it a handball? I don't know. I don't know if it is. Is that a sending off? And I said to my sister, because I hadn't read any of the stuff, I was like, isn't that double jeopardy thing in now though? And she said to me, oh
that's
no,
if you go for the ball.
It's if you make a genuine attempt to get the ball.
Yeah.
And clearly grabbing someone's shirt collar and dragging him back isn't doing that. But then it's this bit. The officials ruled it wasn't a denial. And this makes me laugh as I read it out, right? The officials ruled it wasn't the denial of an obvious goal-scoring opportunity because the Hungary skipper wasn't moving towards Brighton's goal at the time and hadn't gained possession of the ball. He was about to twat the ball into effectively an open goal. What do you want? How much more of a goal-scoring opportunity does it need to be?
What does possession of the ball mean?
Exactly.
He's ripped the shirt off.
He's just grabbed his shirt and pulled him back. But this is what do you mean moving towards the goal? The ball is in front of the goal. His next step is going to be to kick the ball at the goal. How much more of a goal-scoring opportunity does it need to be?
It's just nonsense, isn't it? It's it just feels constant, like this Orwellian bullshit that we have to deal with every week, this double speak explaining fucking crap, and it's it doesn't make any sense. What are you talking about?
Did you watch it? And it was dead funny, the Mike Dean and Paul Mason bit off Sky, and it was funny because Paul Mason was just doing this, wasn't he? And Mike Dean was doing what you're talking about, which is just
nonsense.
Double speak nonsense. Yeah. Laws can't change. That's just the way
saying
it is.
Things like end of.
Yeah, and you're Jesus Christ, fellas! What is going on? How have we got into this position where we can't all just sit down, the people who love football, and go, this has just got to stop now. Let's just strip it all back and decide what we want as the basic rules of this game that everyone loves, because it's being spoiled by these dickheads.
Yeah, this bunch of Parkham wardens. Klopp was asked about the decision afterwards. He said, I'm over it. I'm too old for these kind of things and it won't change it, which tells you everything about his mood with the whole thing. There's just no point in him getting involved. It's going to reduce his bank balance, as he said the other week, if he does get involved. I saw a good tweet from Andrew Beasley, bass tune to Red, someone who's well worth following on Twitter. He says, there's lots to dislike about Premier League refereeing these days, but this irks me more than just about anything. Just apply the the laws of the games throughout. And it's a section of Dale Johnson's VAR review that he does every Monday. Dale, who works for ESPN. And it's a bit where it says, perhaps Oliver didn't want to produce two... This is in relation to the Man City game. Perhaps Oliver didn't want to produce 2 yellow cards in quick succession in the first half. We saw similar game management by referee Peter Banks in the West Ham v Newcastle game. Guimaraes was booked in the 16th minute and almost straight away committed another possible yellow card challenge on Ward-Prowse. Like Oliver, Banks opted to keep his cards in his pocket rather than produce the red. Like, there isn't... We're not asking you lads to referee manage context. Games. We don't want you to manage a game. We want you to apply the rules in a consistent fashion from one week to the next. How is that difficult to do? I just don't... I don't want to be on here or anywhere in life talking about these fellas. It bores me to tears, but you've got to do it because it's always seemingly something really big every week. And there's a reason now that you've got, Ref Watch on Sky and Peter Walton with a little mini column in the Times and, whoever else, referees getting employed in the media. It's because it's a shit show. And it's because they're commenting on the shit show week after week after week and seemingly not much is changing. And I'm exasperated by it, mate. Yeah. But we'll get back to the footy. Yeah, we discussed Mac Allister not looking comfortable. We discussed the big misses, Gravenberch and Pedro. Asked about Alexis, Klopp said before the draw, his best position is too young for me to know in this moment. If we defend well as a team, he can play in the number 6, definitely. Like I say, I don't think his face to me, and maybe I'm reading too much into faces, but I don't think his face says... I'm enjoying this, boss, and please play me here. He's what I noticed about him as well. He seems to be the new Henshaw in respect of, like Henshaw always looked like he'd just been goosing. Yeah, it looked like he just had a bit of love in the afternoon before he came out on the pitch, and
rosy red cheeks and sweat on his brow. Yeah,
and Alexis is the new one of them, isn't he? He looks like he's blowing for tugs all the time, and you're like, you all right, lad?
Do you know what? In fairness to him, I do think you hear Gary Neville saying that being Man United's goalie is the hardest position in football. I think being number 6 in this side is right up there. We've said this before, Joe, last season when Fabinho was struggling. You're like, well, give him a bit of a chance, lads. Do you know what I mean? Like, when you're the best player and you're in the best form of your life, you're doing well. And when we're compact and all the rest of it. But there's so many times when that lad in our team is just expected to do so much. And
it's the Rafa small blanket, isn't it?
It is, yeah. And I think the thing with Mac Allister is, like, there is a part for me, but we're back to the Szoboszlai loving of, like, he could play anywhere on the pitch and he'd be great.
Well, someone put that in the comments saying about him at 6.
His physicality. You're wasting him. You're wasting him, but his physicality would suit the role more. There's a reason Rodri's a unit. There's a reason Fabinho was a unit and good in that position. You need more of that physicality, I think, and that's why I've got a lot of sympathy with Mac Allister, and because I actually think he's been really good, even though he's playing out of position. And that's why I think it's very harsh to blame him for the goal, because actually the bit about him playing as the 6, which is good, is he's good at receiving the ball in tight spaces. He's good at moving the ball on. He's got a good touch. So that's the strength of his game. That's the bit that people are complaining about, that goal being given away, isn't the weakness in his game. The weakness is the other stuff around it that Fabinho and Rodri could do really well. But it comes back to the same point, doesn't it? I would imagine what the plan was. We want Andre as the 6. We've identified him. We tried to get him in. We couldn't. We know we can get him in January. So what we'll do is manage the season till January and just try and make sure that we're still in the hunt when it gets to there. Because if we bring this lad in and we can get him to settle quickly, you've got that physical unit then. And it's worth saying as well, what Klopp says there, if we defend well as a team, he can play as the number 6, definitely. It's not just if we can defend well as a team. Most of the games we play, we dominate. We dominate the ball. We're not exposed that much. If our defenders, our centre-backs are on form and firing and fit, we're all right.
It's just on the break, isn't it? It's on the break. You think about the amount of stuff that Fabinho used to do at his best, and you just stretch out a leg, or he'd just be in the right place. He could handle the physical stuff, without being like sizist or something. Like, Mac Allister's a titch, isn't he?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And it's like, it just doesn't look right that he's there. Do you know what I mean? And even Endo, like, it's obviously like his position, and he's played there a lot internationally and in a good league, but he's one as well. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, there's loads of big lads kicking around the midfield that I just think they're not, we need a groch here. Do you know what I mean? Get us a groch. We're getting a few comments in about the referee, and Pancho Villa says the problem is the league officiating is not consistent on ambiguous calls. Mr. Intense says one of many problems with PGMOL is that none of them have played football to a high standard. I seen a tweet as well from Mark Ogden, who said Curtis Jones was sent off last week after the referee went to the screen to check the severity of the foul. Kovacic stays on after the referee doesn't check the screen to assess the severity of the foul on VAR review. Consistency, ? I presume you've seen that, the one in the City game, the Kovacic one.
Yeah, and I read out a tweet to you before, and I think it's worth mentioning as well. And because there are people, we talked about this at length last week, and this is why referees should not be allowed to be paid to go and referee in other countries where the people who own the country also, and I know officially this isn't the case, but let's be clear, own a football club in the league that the referees referee in. Because I'm not saying that Michael Oliver is corrupt, right? And I know the people who are now. Yeah. Let's make that clear so we don't get sued. But what I am saying is, it is normal human psychological behaviour to have a subconscious bias that you might not even be aware of if you've got an interest that conflicts with something else you're doing. So what I mean is, if you work for somebody and they give you money and you need that money or you want that money, you're likely to be more favourable towards that person or thing. So you might, for example, if they're getting criticised by someone, you might defend them. You might be more inclined to be in their favour than against them. Subconsciously, you might be less inclined to book a player who plays for their fucking football team. Subconsciously. It doesn't even need to be corrupt. This is why other industries have rules against conflicts of interest, to rule out any possibility of it happening. And it blows my mind.
It's why we always find out, or we know, where the referee is from and what football team they supported, and how come it's really the biggest coincidence in football that so many of them support Altrincham.
Yeah, I mean, but this is the point. It blows my mind that in such an industry where so much money is on the line and so many big decisions are so important, they open themselves to the idea that there might be corruption. There's no need for it. Yeah. There's just no need 100%. For it. If we need to, so I saw some people debating this on Twitter last week after our shows, and the refs, because we mentioned how much they get paid. They're full-time professionals now, and someone said they don't get paid enough. And I think I already mentioned this. Pay them more then. If we need to pay them more to get better quality referees in such a big league where so much is on the line, pay them more. Get better quality people in. Bring them in from abroad if we need to. And stop them having any interests outside of the league where there can be any question at all. Because that Kovacic one is an absolute disgrace. The fact that did you see the clip of them debating it on Sky? Like Theo Walcott and Micah Richards. And Theo Walcott's going, he should be sent off for the first one. Yeah. It's a straight red for the first. So it's debatable whether he should be sent off for the first. And then there's the second one a few minutes later. It's wild.
Yeah, it is. It really is. I mean, I think we should touch on the City game as well, just because, okay, Tottenham and Arsenal are up there, but you inevitably always turn back to, well, City are the ones most likely to win this title. So what are they doing? Where are they at? And, this is the first time that they've lost 2 games consecutively in the league since 2018. They obviously lost in the League Cup as well to Newcastle. Rodri missing for all of those 3 games, coincidence. There's also something in the Times today which says April the 17th, 2010, Espanyol 0, Barcelona 0. That was the previous time that a team coached by Pep Guardiola had no more than 4 shots in a game. It was their lowest tally in a league game under Guardiola in his 274th Premier League game. In his 528th game as manager, it was the joint lowest, matching that Barcelona's 4 attempts against Espanyol. I mean, it's hardly a crisis. If you're Man City and you're doing, the Blue Moon podcast or whatever it might be, you're saying what we're saying. We're right up there. There's nothing to worry about. Rodri's coming back. We'll see De Bruyne again eventually. He's out injured at the moment. You may be saying we're missing Gundogan. I think you were one of the ones who was saying he was likely going to be a miss for them. We don't play them until the end of November. But, I think, you look at that, you've got 4 points covered the top 6 at the moment. Tottenham on 20 points, Arsenal on 20, Man City on 18, Liverpool 17, Villa 16, and Brighton 16. What do you think? What do you think the mood there is? Are you seeing cracks, or is it more just a couple of key players being out and they'll go on that? They'll go on one of those runs that annoys us all so much.
Well, as you were talking, then it's funny because as I remember going through the odds, you went through the odds for the season before it all kicked off, and the odds they're so odds on to get in the top 4. And I always think to myself with stuff like that, I used to bet and I don't anymore, but I often think to myself about betting, like the professional bettors bet on, short odds, things that are just like buying money, basically. And I was looking at it thinking, God, is that just buying money, putting a bet on them to finish in the top 4? But as you were talking then, I just had a quick look at the league table and was like, I just wonder, the year after they've done the treble, there's more, we said before the season started, there's more sides in this league now who can beat them and take points off them. Yeah. Could they drop out the top 4? And that's a long shot, and a wild shout. I think it's much more likely. The big one you just said in the middle of that, and ever want to see how important a player is to a side, take him out for a few games and see what happens. We all knew Rodri was an unbelievable player in their system and important to them. The fact they've lost 3 on the bounce, well, it's not 3 on the run, is it? Because they had the Champions League game in the middle, but 2 league games on the bounce.
Which he played in.
Yeah, there you go. So, clearly a huge miss for them. But I think it's much more likely. I think you said that the last time they did this, they won the league.
Yeah.
So we know what they're capable of. It's not it's funny when you see Guardiola moan about injuries and stuff like that, and you're like, I'm sure you'll be all right, mate. With what you've created in this squad. But I think it's easy for us all to forget that De Bruyne's missing. And I don't know when he's due back, but Gundogan was always going to be a big loss. To not have De Bruyne, Gundogan and Rodri in that side from last season. Any side in the world would miss those 3, wouldn't they? So, but I think once Rodri's back, they are more likely to go on one of those runs you talk about than drop out the top 4. Do you know what I mean? I
think you made a point there, which I'm going to bring back to Liverpool, which is, missing people or realising the influence of people when they're not there. Now, I'm not for 1 second before someone pops up in the comments comparing Curtis Jones to Rodri. However, I did think yesterday was a bit of one of them where you were like, you realise now that he makes a positive contribution to that side. He deserves to be in that side. Yeah. And I think you could see how those, a combination of injuries and suspensions hurt us yesterday. We weren't able to make a real change up front. We weren't able to have the continuous legs of Jones. And I think, that was one of the reasons, another one of the reasons that it ended up being 2-2. I think, and it's another one of the reasons I think where you say, and we'll take that in the circumstance, because, I don't want to do Tottenham again. But, there's a reason that those players are suspended, etc. And probably should touch as well on the bizarreness of them saying that second yellow for Jota wasn't a yellow, but they couldn't do anything about it.
Well, we haven't talked about that anyway, have we? Like,
no.
Other than like exchanging messages, and that just adds to the whole wildness of where we've ended up. So Kovacic is only getting, and that's what the tweet I read out to you before. Basically, when you boil it down, Kovacic for those 2 tackles is only getting 1 yellow card. Jota got 2 yellow cards in a situation in which, when it was reviewed by the panel said the second one shouldn't be a yellow, and they didn't look at the first because they don't look at the first. But the first was less of a yellow than the second in most of our eyes, I think.
Yeah.
But then, I mean, when I was
reading, their rules are daft, though, aren't they? It's like, why have you made up a system that is so overcomplicated? Like, we can look at the second one, but we can't look at the first one because that's our rule. We'll put it out there publicly. That second yellow wasn't a yellow, so therefore it shouldn't have been a red. But there's no form of appeal, and he's banned anyway.
That's the bit that I didn't get. It's like, again, anyone who's listened to us for a while now will know I love the thought of just picturing meetings. And I can just picture them going, right, next on the agenda is Diogo Jota's second yellow card for Liverpool against Spurs. Okay, what do we all think? And someone goes, sorry though, Chairman, can I just raise something? There's nothing we can do about this though, is there?
Nothing I can do.
Nothing I can do. Good process.
Can't do anything. Can't do anything.
But like, there's nothing we can do about it, Chairman of the meeting. So why the fuck are we even talking about it? Why is it on our agenda to talk about? If there's nothing we can do about it, why are we talking about it? And why have we created rules where we can't do anything about it if we've decided it's not a yellow? So now, and then the knock-on effect, as you say, because I agree with you on Curtis Jones, to go back to that, and I hope he starts getting more credit from the people who, again, weirdly don't like him. I just don't get that. But even just watching it again today, that last 15 minutes of the game, if you can bring on Gakpo or Jota, you potentially win that game.
Yeah.
Because we've done that loads this year, haven't we? With that firepower that we can bring off the bench when the other team is tiring, when there's a bit more space. The last 5-10 minutes of the game, we were pushing, and we didn't have that. And we didn't have that because partly we had a lad sent off who shouldn't have been sent off. And it just all adds into the whole craziness of it all.
Well, let's have a little look at sort of how they've done so far Premier League wise. So obviously opening day, draw away to Chelsea, then home win 3-1 against Bournemouth, obviously won in spectacular fashion away to Newcastle, beat Aston Villa 3-0 at home, beat Wolves 3-1 away, beat West Ham 3-1 at home, Tottenham, of course, we know what happened there, and now Brighton, a draw at the weekend. We said before, sort of, right up there and, in the mix and all the rest of it. But, 5 of those away, of the 8 are away, which traditionally are harder. And, it's, last season, if we think about last season and the struggle that last season was, they were not great whatsoever away from home. We've played 6 of the teams who will likely make up the top 10 in the league. And yeah, only 3 points away from the top. And what we're seeing online now, which I always love, because it's just quite funny from a sort of watching humans interact, if you like. You've got already the sort of people saying we can win this league, we can win this league. And then you've got lots of people going, hang on, don't start saying that now. Let's just hang on. Let's see where we are and all that. I'm a bit of both, I think, in that, if you're up there and you're that close and, it's been a decent start, you think they can get better. There's the potential of the January window as well, and all that kind of stuff. I just think we do need, and I think we've been saying this in the shows all season so far, I think we do need to be fortunate around injuries. I think, a little rash of them could cause us big problems, but if we can keep the main fellas fit and firing, Salah, we can keep him away from Saudi, all that kind of stuff, I think we've got a good chance. Yeah,
I do. And it's interesting, even as you go through the fixtures, the away games, and I know other people might go, well, no, that's one you should be winning. But we beat Wolves 3-1 away and City lost there. That's not a gimme. And not that any games in this league,
especially how it
really
went as well. You know what I mean? Like it's another game where we concede the first goal, we start slow, all of those things, and you're like, oh, it's going to be one of them days.
And you'd like to think we'll iron that stuff out, wouldn't you? Like if you compare the two, City started the league with us all going, oh, rolling our eyes, here we go again. You know, they're just going to run away with this, 6 on the bounce, and then they've had this little blip, lost a couple, and I think that always the big thing that comes from games like that for them and for us, we've seen it happen to us in the past, and it works both ways. When you get on a run where you look and feel invincible, we grew up with this, didn't we, with Man United? Teams turn up expecting to be beaten, and it's a completely different thing. Like if teams have got 2 games in a week and one of them is you, they rest some of their big players to focus on the other game. We've seen it. And when we were the unbelievable side, we started seeing it. Teams turn up and you're like, we'll beat you. We're going to roll. They turn up thinking, well, if we get away with a 4-0 defeat at Anfield, that's good. We just don't want to be humiliated. And City have had that for so long now. The fact they've lost 2 just gives everybody that bit of, they're not invincible this season, you know. Yeah. They're tired. Maybe the psychology is not right. Maybe the mentality is not right.
Sheffield United gave them a game.
100%. And I think that can creep into them internally as well. And don't get me wrong, they're phenomenal. They've got an unbelievable manager. He knows how to deal with this stuff. They're still more likely to win the league than not. But I don't know. It's just, if we can do what you've just said, you know, keep people fit and get to January and strengthen. I do think if we can, you know, buy, let's say there's Andre, and I don't even know how good he is. I've never really seen him, but let's say he comes and he's good and he adds something. We've seen how that can affect the season. I think it was Diaz a couple of seasons ago, wasn't it? Lands, plays really well from the start, boosts everyone, gives you a little kick on. I don't know. I think this could be one of those seasons where there's a few horses in the race at the end.
And there's just little things, isn't there, that you think, ooh, you know, like the Calvin Phillips thing's a bit weird at City. You know, he's got overlooked there again. You know, the manager's previously sort of publicly outed him for being overweight, which was a bit mad.
And that can't be good in the dressing room, can it? No. I hadn't thought of that. But when's he getting his chance then? Yeah. Think about going back to what we were saying about Harvey Elliott before. And Guardiola, this is the difference between Guardiola and Klopp, one of them. Guardiola isn't famously a look after all your boys fella, is he? Like he's been in Cancelo in the middle of a season because he's more of a Ferguson type character for that, isn't he?
Yeah.
Not asked. You don't do what I say, you're out. There's no, like, we're not all best mates in this camp. We're here to win. But I think that must have an impact on people.
Yeah, Michaela Perkins there is saying in the comments, I actually think City have been poor in most of the games. They've not been spectacular by any means. Well, let's hope that is how things continue to unfold. Yeah, next for Liverpool, the derby, 21st of October. Then we've got Toulouse at home and Nottingham Forest at home. Then we go to Bournemouth in the League Cup in midweek, start of November. And then it's Luton away after that. You'd like to think they're winning all of them, I would say.
That's got to be your aim, hasn't it? And by the way, in the middle of all that, we haven't really talked about this. That cup competition's really opened up for us, hasn't it?
Yeah.
When you look at the draw, when you look at who's been knocked out, when you look at who's left, you've got to be looking at that thinking, win that now. And you've got the squad to do it with the lads we can rotate and all the rest of it. What we've just said about what we said on our show about Bournemouth.
Yeah.
Shite.
Very bad at the weekend, yeah.
And there's always a funny thing with cup games because sometimes managers think we'll use the cup game to try and get some confidence. But again, I'd probably think their manager's probably looking at that game home to Liverpool thinking maybe we just best concentrate on the league the weekend after. But that whole run, yeah. And look, started off with the derby. You've got to get the business done there first, haven't you? But after that, yeah, you win those 5 games. You're in a nice little position then, aren't you?
100%. I think as well when you're talking about sort of how has this been so far, what would we rate it almost? I mean, I heard on the radio today they were sort of going through all the clubs so far, the results so far, the results at the weekend, and then they were sort of saying whether they thought it was above par, below par, or par. Now they gave Liverpool par, and as I was slurping on my tea and shouting at the radio, my argument with them would have been, had they been able to hear me, was they didn't make any mention at all of the fact that Milner, Firmino, Keita, Oxlade-Chamberlain, they all left. Henderson and Fabinho went, and that wasn't the plan. You know what I mean? And obviously we get the players in. We get Mac Allister, Szoboszlai, Endo, and Gravenberch. All at once, we've had this huge overhaul. Am I right up there? And we should be higher. We should have had something from Spurs. We were the better side, and we scored a legitimate goal. And I'm not going to stop going on about that. You fucking move on.
That's what you should have put on the board. You fucking
move on. But that's, when you think about the overhaul and the turnover in the summer, it's brilliant. It's surely, I'd say it's above par, because I think what people were saying before the ball was kicked is, and Klopp himself said Liverpool 2.0 and all that kind of stuff. Everyone was thinking this is a transitional season. It's too much change in too short a time. Plus you haven't got the number 6 that you wanted. Plus you didn't get the defender that you seemed to want, etc. I think before a ball was kicked, people were saying they're going to be way off. It's going to be a difficult season for Liverpool, is I think what the majority view was. And I think you can argue above par because of that overhaul.
I think you're right, and I agree with you. And I think this is an example of something we've mentioned in the past about Klopp suffering from the standards he set himself here.
Yeah.
Like, our mate Mark Goldbridge, who we've mentioned a couple of times, and we talk about off air, that like he seems to be the only person I'm seeing, and he's a United fan, banging on about how amazing it is what we've done with the midfield. And look, I'm as guilty as this, and we don't say this enough. What Klopp and the coaching staff have done with our midfield to overhaul it in one summer, with all the lads you've just named have gone, including our captain and our most important 6, to have replaced them with the lads we have, and for it to have, bear in mind, we're still saying, is the 6 right? Is Mac Allister right there? It's been unbelievable what we've done. And it's like everyone's forgotten it because Klopp's brilliant, and we can do this, and it's great. We can just create this new side. And I think we're above par. It's also a bit of revisionism, I think, because even I was saying before a ball was kicked, and I think lots of people were saying a similar thing. The league could go either way. Joe, if we'd have got off to a bad start, you get beat by Chelsea, you've got a tough fixture list, you get off to a bad start and things start spiralling, the wheels could come off. And actually, it's gone the complete opposite direction. We're sitting here in, what are we, 4th, 3 points off the top, going, no, we should be higher than that.
Yeah.
We should have done better.
And we're also saying 60 million quid for Szoboszlai is an absolute steal. Unbelievable. And how come, every club in Europe wasn't in a big queue for him?
And again, and just look, but I'm going to start doing the you move on. That can be added to our merchandise, can't it? You move on. I'm going to start doing the you move on about the transfers in the summer. No, I'd never heard of Szoboszlai before the summer. So, when people are like, well, who else is out there that we could have bought as a 6 or as a defender? You're like, there's someone, lad, because the best player I've ever seen in my fucking life came for 60 million, and I'd never heard of him. Like, and as you say, like, why is no one else in for him? Why did no one else want Szoboszlai? Man United, have they not scouted him? Like, when you see him now, you're like, he's unbelievable. Yeah. Again, I'm watching him, and I was laughing to myself watching the match, thinking, I need to get over this because I just want to talk about him every week. I was watching him thinking, and I was thinking, yeah, I have got that love back. That's mad how it's come back. We've joked about this in the past, haven't we? He's like a stallion. He runs like a stallion. Do you know what I mean? He's got like grace.
Yeah, he has. Yeah.
And like the both speed and power and grace over the grass. Unbelievable.
The other thing we should mention before we go is it is 8 years of Jurgen now. It was the anniversary on Sunday. He's got a contract until 2026. There is a rumour. Have
you started this rumour, by the way?
I emphasise rumour. I didn't. It was one of the lads who was on the bus with. He told me. But there is a rumour that there's consideration of a longer contract for Jurgen because both he and his wife are incredibly settled here, and he don't want to go.
They love Formby. They love the Freshfield pub. Love the Tuesday night quiz.
Yeah, all of that. So I mean, I'd be up for that if he fancied that. But he's already the longest serving boss since Bob Paisley who was in charge between 74 and 83. And I think that, even that's something that sort of, I think, flies under the radar a little bit. That to do 8 years in this climate, in the way football is now, in a place where, managers are sacked so easily. Again, we're a little bit spoilt, I think. And I had a bit of a mad one. I did me gushing tweet about how much I love Klopp and what he's done for us, and he's been transformative, and he's this generation's Shankly and all of those, lovely getting carried away type stuff. And I said, build the statue. And someone came back to me on Twitter, Mickey the Moustache.
Pissing on your chips.
Wasn't into it.
He's famous for pissing on people's chips, Mickey the Moustache.
Mickey the Moustache, he said, the statue for a handful of trophies in almost a decade is a joke. And he's done the laughing face
on the side. I know, that's like extra laughing faces. I very rarely use that one.
Knob for suggesting that. Yeah. And then he said he needs to become either a multiple PL or CL winner before that becomes a realistic discussion. This is Liverpool FFS. So I replied, I don't know if you missed it, mate, but we didn't win the title for 30 years. And he came back, so what? It was our 19th, not our first. We went 20 years without winning one in the 20s. Where is George K's trophy for ending that?
I think he needs statue, doesn't he?
Yeah. And then he said, then we went 30 years dry is to our shame. Ending that by winning one and only one is not statue worthy at a club our size. La. Not for me anyway. I mean, who do you agree with out there in the comments? Do you think I'm right in that, of course, you're making some kind of, permanent thing to respect Jurgen Klopp and what he's done at Liverpool? Or does he need to be a multiple PL or CL winner, as Mickey the Moustache says?
Are you on Team Robbo or Team Mickey the Moustache?
Yeah.
Joe, in fairness to
Mickey,
Mickey,
are you backing?
In fairness to Mickey, I like his reference to the 1920s.
Yeah.
It's very rare that people pull out the 20s in a footy argument, isn't it?
Fair play to him.
Like George K was a big fella in the 20s, one of my favourite Liverpool managers.
Yeah.
And yeah, maybe we should have should we have a statue for George K as well? I'm going to start a campaign for a statue for George K.
Well, George K was the manager from the 1st of May 1936 until 1951. So,
and he did it fucking through a war. He deserves a statue more than Klopp. Fucking hell.
What about George Patterson? What about John McKenna? What about, we could go on and on. But, Klopp, 443 games, 268 wins, trophies, obviously the Premier League, the FA Cup, the Champions League, the League Cup, the Super Cup, the World Club Cup, or Club World Cup. It's got Community Shield on here. I'm not counting that. I'm not having that. That's a show.
Is that on the wall of... What's it called? Wall of Fame?
The Wall
of Champions?
Yeah, don't think it is it?
Isn't it?
You don't have that. And as pointed out here in The Athletic, lost the title twice by only a single point to 115 charges Manchester City. Twice beaten by Real Madrid in the Champions League final as well. And we're going to do a show which is out later in the week about... If we were going to go around replaying games, as Jurgen went rogue and suggested in the week, what games would you want to be replayed? I think some of those that affected losing titles by single points and losing it in Champions League finals to Real Madrid, I've got to count. But again, this is another thing as well. Like, Mickey there with Mickey the Muzzy, going on about things, George K, etc. No, he wasn't up against this. He wasn't up against Man City. He wasn't up against, a team that's not arsed about financial fair play. And I'm gonna pull up something that we used to bang on about all the time. We very rarely say that the Liverpool fan base has moved on, but I don't know why it has, because we under the management of Rafa Benitez. I remember my Evertonian mates or the mates of other clubs would get sick of us talking about net spend. They'd be like, net spend. Who cares about net spend? It's about who you're buying and blah, blah, blah. And we used to say that all the time, didn't we, under Rafa? Is net spend only this? I don't know why we've stopped saying that when it came up on the telly for the game the other day. Klopp's net spend in his time at Liverpool, I think, is £370 million. Oh, lad. That is unbelievable. Look, you're sparking FSG net spend weirdos to be all over my timeline. Yes.
Message
Paul
tweet Robbo,
7
no.
Cope.
Message Robbo, I won't check mine. So message Robbo and he'll read them to me.
It's Cope who said it.
But isn't that mad? Like, he's achieved all of that. I don't know, there's all the arguments about net spend, I get it. Like, it's who you sell and you get money in and blah, 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 blah. But what he's achieved with what he's had and what he's done, where he's taken us from and to, is unbelievable.
Well, some comments on this. Someone says, the classic comments on the internet, like Klopp hasn't helped the club progress forward all these years. Martin says, absolutely one of the greatest, worthy of a statue. Pancho Villa says, multiple. Don't know what that means. Klopp's legacy is disappointing, but we're so desperate for silverware that we think one is enough. I mean, I don't think anyone...
Disappointing.
I don't think anyone thinks it's disappointing or that one is enough. James Walker says Mickey has a point. So there you go. Some backing for Mickey out there. Mr. Intense wants a bronze bust of Klopp with an actual pair of his old glasses on.
I was literally just about to say, well, you've got a dilemma if you have a statue. Glasses or no glasses? Does it depend how long he continues managing us without glasses on?
Indeed. I mean, it depends what the statue is. I mean, you look at what they've gone for with Paisley, and, it's Emlyn Hughes on his back, isn't it? Outside Anfield. Doesn't that... Obviously, Shankly's one is iconic, and it was always going to be the arms outstretched. What would be your Klopp moment that you would turn into a statue? It could be when his glasses went flying,
just like a crowd one.
Yeah.
When they're all on him and his glasses are flying.
It could be, or it could be him crying.
But then wouldn't people think it's a statue of Adam Lallana? Would people get confused? And then you'd start an whole debate. Why is there a statue of Adam Lallana?
He cried, didn't he? It could be one of him crying to show how much it all meant to him. Either way, look, he's still got another 3 years at least. It could be longer if the rumour's right.
I'll throw in, controversially, I'm not sure he should have a statue yet. And only because I was thinking, Dalglish hasn't got a statue. And then I was thinking about it the weekend, and I know, but that's what I was going to say. What would you rather have, a stand or a statue?
Well, this is where, someone said to me last night, and I like this because I'm daft. He said, you could have the Jurgen Klopp.
Yeah.
Let's bust that, innit? I'm into that.
I think he'd rather have that.
The Jurgen Klopp.
Don't you reckon?
Yeah. Let us know if you think. Let us know if you think the Jurgen Klopp is a goer. Someone's saying it's got to be the fist bump. Yeah, I suppose that's right. Yeah.
Like what? Like a moving one? Like
that'd be weird.
like son of Legoland. You can come in. You could do that thing where you come and put 20 pence in it, and it does it if you put 20p in.
Another money maker for FSG there.
Yeah.
Old glasses, old hair, and old teeth. John Jones asks. I mean, look.
Good shout, John.
I like a good dose of sarcasm. I like a good bit of needle. And Alex is thrown in. Shankly never won the European Cup. Tear down the statue.
Yeah.
Imagine just going down tonight.
Tear it down.
Fucking fraud.
Yeah. His net spend was shit as well.
We are going to leave it there. There's people enjoying the idea of a moving fist bump.
I think that's the goer. Someone out there, if you know anyone who can build that, we'll sponsor it. I'll pay for it out of my own money and we'll make it back with the 20 pence pieces.
I seen a bit of blue.
Imagine that. Every Saturday I have to go down and empty out the 20 pence pieces. Yeah. Well, Take it to Asda, put it in the machine that counts the coins for you. I'd be minted.
I like the idea of it sort of like winding other people up as well. That, like I seen a fella once and it was just bizarre. I was sat opposite the cop waiting to do something. Someone was coming to interview me or something like that. So I was just sat there, I think, like eating a bacon butty, waiting for them to turn up. And this fella on his own at like 10 o'clock in the morning walked past like the cop end of Anfield and was like giving it the V's and red shite and all this, just on his sod. And I just thought wow, you're so triggered by the existence of Anfield, the cop, Liverpool FC. Imagine how triggered he'd be by a moving fist bump Klopp. He'd be fuming.
That'd be brilliant.
It'd be the end of him, I reckon.
It just for that.
Okay, well, there'll be another show from us later on in the week on This Is Anfield. We do, as we said at the start, do the Late Challenge podcast. You can check that out. We've got our own YouTube channel. Go over there and watch that. The last 2 shows have done really well. One is about, is the Premier League fucked? The other one is the corruption in football? Both of those seem to have gone down well, so check those out. They are football related. It is me and him, so if you like me and him, go over there. Click subscribe as well, because that helps us. Click subscribe on This Is Anfield too. And if you like this show, tell other people about it as well. And come back next week, because we'll be here again live at 5. Up the Reds.